you've put your stuff away. Make sure you've gotten food. Please eat. Make sure you are ready to go. We will be warming up in 5 minutes.
Hi, my name's Theo Davis. I'm part of the Intertwined storytelling event. I'm excited to be a part of it because I love stories, I love podcasts, and I really wanted to share a story as well. Over the years, I often thought back at those hikers, and I began to wonder about myself. What were my limits? How far could I push myself? Was I capable of the Pacific Crest Trail?
What first brought you to Intertwined? What kind of piqued your interest, brought you in the door to that first meeting?
Yeah, I saw this workshop for the Intertwined storytelling. I wanted to learn how to storytell. I've always loved listening to podcasts such as the Moth Radio Hour, This American Life, it was at Shittown, S-Town, and I've always loved those, and I said, well, I want to be a part of this. I want to see how this is done. And when they said there was an application to apply and that you could work with these master storytellers who have studied with all these masters from around the world, and now they're going to take some time and work with you to help you craft your story. I was like, whoa, what an amazing opportunity. I was just trying to muster enough strength to get up and get going, but I couldn't. And I remember I reached up over my head to where the valve was on my air mattress, and I opened it. I closed my eyes, I took a deep breath, and I said, I am grateful to be out here.
I joined Intertwined to learn how to tell a better story, how to properly articulate my thoughts, but also how to connect my life story with to a story that can be shared and understood by others.
Childhood was taken. I'm flying down and heading into the tightest and most dangerous turn, when at the very last moment I slam on the brake just in time as a bus passes by on its way up the hill.
I didn't really know how to tell a story or what to do, but I saw a sign for storytelling workshop. And so I went. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. All I wanted to do was just write a good story. I think that it's just extremely valuable to open up and share your experience and to hear other people's experiences. And I feel like a very lucky person. It's kind of part of what my story goes into, but I genuinely feel so lucky just the past 4 days meeting everyone and hearing everyone else's story and seeing how, you know, someone from South Africa and Nepal and me in New Jersey and all these people, we have all these radically different experiences, but we all talk about the same things, and you know, we're all feeling just so similarly, even though what happens to you is so different.
Not only was I trying to fight for my own survival and success, but break the cycle of poverty and intergenerational trauma.
I hope to grow from this experience. I feel every time you tell your story, you know, it comes from a place of vulnerability and discomfort, but through all that, that's how you grow as a person. So I'm hoping to do that and be a better storyteller, because a lot of the stories we carry are important and we just don't tell them, and I want to do that for myself and my community.
I got involved in Intertwined because I saw last year's performance and I was really inspired. People were up on stage laying their hearts out on the line and kind of just letting their most vulnerable selves shine in front of a whole group of strangers. I remember watching and thinking, that's going to be me. I got to be up there. I have a story to tell.
All that hurt and disappointment, it started turning me angry. I hated her boyfriend. I hated her best friend. I hated not being her number one. I hated the way I couldn't fix her issues, and I hated the way I thought being with her could fix mine. I don't think I ever hated so many things in my life.
Like you said, I mean, besides just these rehearsals, we met another time with the group, and especially now that we've heard each other's stories through the rehearsal, I know for me, I was the first time other people had heard it other than my coach and Colin, the music guy. So it's like, before you go out and lay it out there for 100 strangers, you got 12 people who you know are going through the same process. So it's pretty cool for us to have that experience and share those stories with each other first before everybody else.
My interest in participating in this event is twofold. First, in the storytelling capacity. The narrative about the choice that I made and I want to share is not something that I've shared before or even really said out loud. But I think sharing that information could be instrumental or empowering to people who potentially hear it or need to hear it. And so in that way, I would love to contribute and be part of the storytelling event in that way. And secondly, to story listen to other people's narratives and other people's choices that they've made and that they want to share. So, yeah.
I wish I could have said goodbye to you better, that I could have told you how much of you I loved, what sweetness of your soul will linger in mine forever, why it was so hard for me to leave, how badly I wanted to stay. But for the first time in 5 years, I was going to choose me.
I'm here because Sarah forced me to sign up.
That's not true.
No, but I'm glad she gave me that push. I also came last year because I had 3 friends that performed and told their story, and I didn't really know what to expect. And it was incredible just to see the range of emotion, how something so simple, you know, there's no decoration or anything, it's just a person up there with a mic telling their story, and to see people go from laughing to crying to just like absolute silence because they don't even know how to react. It was very powerful. It was an emotional roller coaster, but in a good way. And yeah, this year when it came up, I was making a lot of excuses at my thesis and graduating and work and class, and then Sarah just said to me one day, she was like, "You're signing up right now." And I did. Whilst I was at work, I signed up, but didn't know if I'd be accepted.
I realized that I'd forgotten what it felt like to feel full. And the hope I carry forward is that I never forget that fullness is possible. Wherever life takes me, whatever the circumstances, even if there is pain, that is what I will be fighting for. To remember that I always have a choice, because this is my life and I get to say how it goes. Thank you.
Yeah, so I went last year because I knew a storyteller that was performing, and it was a very inspiring event. And I remember thinking that I don't have a story that's interesting enough to share. And then in that moment I caught myself and I'm like, I do, and I'm going to apply next year no matter what. Like no matter what the theme is. So I knew without question that I was going to go for it.
I got involved with Intertwined because I used to listen to the storytelling podcast, The Moth, a lot. And every time I would listen to someone's story on that podcast, I really felt so close to a stranger out there in the world. And I really wanted to replicate that experience. And by sharing my own story, I hope that someone else can relate and feel less alone out there. And from this experience, I really hope to be comfortable sharing intimate parts of myself with people I don't know, and hopefully learn something about myself in the process, and be more comfortable being vulnerable with other people.
Before moving to Colombia, I decided to travel in Brazil for a couple months. So in the final months of preparation, I said bye to my friends and family, I gave away my things, and then, a month before I left, I met someone. It was the worst possible timing. I was moving to South America for 2.5 years in a couple weeks. The month we had together was torture.
I trained in them.
I love that.
My story has been bubbling inside me for a long time. My whole life, people have asked me questions about the choices my parents made about who I am. So it's time to tell the whole tale. And I'm excited about the way my story can mix and mingle with others to become something more than it would be on its own. I hope through this experience I can gain some closure for myself, and I hope that closure can inform others. Though the facts and events of my story are uniquely mine, I hope that those who hear it can find some healing for themselves through the shared human experience.
I am the kid of parents who got to choose their child's race. Not from societal pressures to marry like people or from matters of the heart, but from anonymous stats on a cheap plastic-bound notebook. So, it's complicated. And it's not perfect. But now, it's better.
Comfortable around people, but recently I have been struggling with anxiety. And this is the first time I've been on stage since the struggle really started to happen for me. And it's been really powerful to say, I did this, like I overcame this anxiety, and I got out on stage and I told my story and I nailed it. So I feel like it was like 6 months of therapy in one, 2 nights of performing.
Storyteller, this is for you. This is for
perfect.
Our love was forbidden. And according to our parents' strict, conservative religious views, an Indian Sikh could never be with a Pakistani Muslim. And I think it's irrational to hate someone based on where they're from. But our parents lived through the residual effects of the partition of 1947, and they still carry those animosities.
As far as what I hope to gain from the project, a little bit more confidence and self-assurance and self-love for myself. I think it's so easy to be so hard on ourselves, especially since we're all in grad school and, you know, it's so much anxiety and pressure, and I'm really just looking forward to being proud of myself for being able to accomplish it. So, working on my story was a cathartic experience. It was challenging and it was hard and it's painful. It's also really beautiful and it's raw. And so I had a lot of gains personally to find my voice. And my story dates back 10 years ago. So it's that almost suppressed trauma in a way, that pain that people experience. And I think it benefits sharing this story because my story is so specific to culture and cultural norms and conflict. And so often we hear about cultural conflict between two nations in a diplomatic way or in a political way, but so rarely do we hear about it from the heart and from that perspective. So it's nice to share that Indian side of me with this audience. And Oregon is homogeneously Caucasian, so it's nice to provide that element of education as well.
I always thought that my story would not work out and what would I write, and sometimes I would think like my story is too long, people would not even listen to it, or sometimes this part is very short and people are not going to listen to it. So working on the story with a story coach kind of gave me what to include and what to exclude, because having to say 27 years of your life in one story is not possible at all. So if you can weed out some details and be specific to one incident or one theme, then you can really narrow it down. And like the first thing that I did was just listing events that I remember, listing things that I remember on a particular theme, and that helped me narrow down everything. So I love being in education. I'm an educator by profession, but I'm not in school. So I think this skill in particular will help me make my story clear to my students or the community that I'd be working with. Just trying to think about the right way of telling story and then trying to get the audience to what you want to communicate. Details can always be accompanied by documents and all those other stuff, but getting the story across is really important. And this experience of writing the story from scratch, finding out themes and then giving it a layout, finding out pauses and where to stress and where not to, and acting it out in terms of voice and everything, the whole process I think has made me a better communicator and a better storyteller. So that should give me a big lift in whatever I do in the future within my space of being an educator.